Ladies and gentlemen, don't think that I dressed up for nothing. Here with the golden kitty, or as they call it, the golden bow tie, because it's a golden bow tie. Because that's the kind of video we have today. I want to congratulate you, or rather, I want to congratulate all of us on this extraordinary luck, especially those who live in the city of Los Angeles. On January 25th, one of the most insightful and wise observers of American life, sitting on the other side of the planet, is coming to us. Earth. My city soared with happiness when it learned that he was coming to us. No, not an inspector. I know you've guessed, the inspector is coming. No, not the inspector. Someone better is coming to us, but I want you to guess for yourselves. For example, if I said it's the one who said Veni Vidi Vici, yes, then you would immediately answer me, that's Gaius. Julius Caesar. Well, naturally, yes, of course, everyone knows that. And if I asked, for example, who said, I think, therefore I am, well, without a doubt, everyone who's listening to me would say René Descartes. Just like that, everyone. Upon hearing the words, Trump's voters, poor sick people with crazy ideas in their heads, would immediately say that's Portnikov. Well, the only radiant, calm, wise, and just Vitaly Portnikov. Why, you may ask, does he come? Yes, why, you may ask, does he come? First of all, it's rude to ask. He wants to come, so he comes. And secondly, he wants to tell us to our faces. Well, for those who have a sore spot, not a sore spot, that's something else. A sore spot in the head. To tell us straight to our faces what kind of crap we are. Just like that, right in the face, Veni Vidi Vici. This, of course, is also about Portnikov, by the way. That's what Guy said about him. Well, he foresaw Portnikov's arrival in Los Angeles. Came, saw, took the money, left. And about Descartes, so cogito ergo sum, I'm sure that's completely wrong. I said, well, that is, I exist when I receive American dollars, that's also about him, but Vavka, that's cooler than ergo sum, or like, than Veni Vidi Vici, there's a girl. It's unclear what he's talking about. So what does this wise, undoubtedly word Vavka mean? It means, well, if you just approach it, a sore. It also means an abscess, and an ulcer, and a scab. Yes, a scab. And, of course, a flaw, that is, a deficiency. Portnikov made this statement about all of us. A person who has a sore, you could call him, well, if you don't hide your feelings, yeah, a fucking pus-filled guy. And I think that Vitaly Dovorich, as a thoroughly intelligent person, wanted a wedding for us. He wanted to say to those who voted for Trump that we're fucking pus-filled. Yeah, but because of his innate politeness, he used a softer expression like with a sore in the head, instead of what he really, of course, wanted to say. But Vitaly Eduardovich gathers listeners in Los Angeles who is interested in him. We'll say something about him and say, well, I think he'll definitely say pus-filled sores, or something like that will happen. By the way, for those who are interested, at the Stepan Benderi Ukrainian Cultural Center on January 25th at 7 Post Meridium, I don't know the address, but you can easily find out, jerks. So you are invited to listen to this and other similar wisely remarkable statements by the outstanding author of the book, The Mother of God in the Synagogue. I'm not joking, this is his favorite book, as far as I understand. Vitaly Eduardovich, he lost his funding, well, his support, this rotten bastard. Trump crushed United States Agency for International Development. They called it United States Agency for International Development there, and he had to come to the United States to look for support to continue the war in Ukraine. Vitaly Portnikov advocates for continuing military actions. no matter what it costs, well, for Ukraine, for Ukrainians. Someone thinks that the remaining part of Donetsk and Luhansk regions hasn't been captured. Russia is considered much more important than the lives of another million wounded and killed Ukrainians who will die fighting for the territories that Russia wants to capture before it stops the war. And Portnikov doesn't seem to have any children, or at least he pretends he doesn't. And as for other people's children, it seems he doesn't care about them either, just like the one who sent all 5 of his children away. So, abroad for Gordon or Gordon, Gordomu Gordon, or for example, the mayor of Kiev, Klitschko, and there's no child, the mayor Vova Andrei Sadavoy went to study there. I think so, or something like that, maybe Sadavoy, yes, or the Minister of Justice too. Suddenly the children disappeared somewhere they left on their own. The Minister of Defense, who is so confident in the excellent situation at the front, sent his wife with 3 children to the United States. Well, just so they understand how bad it is to live here, so they would never want to go to the country later. This terrible, nightmarish country, as if its underdeveloped socialism isn't enough. There's already too much socialism here, and it's still hard to steal for now. But Portnikov turned out to be more cunning, and he didn't have children. At least officially, maybe he just couldn't, who knows. But that's not our business. So, Ukraine. Jewish Portnikov adores its history, its past, its historical figures, and its national character, while having distinctly Semitic features. By the way, personally, I don't see anything wrong with that because, well, I'm the same way myself. Vitaly Eduardovich repeatedly and somewhat insistently emphasizes that he is Ukrainian, meaning Ukrainian by civic and national self-identification. It's even hard for me to guess, well, because my mouth doesn't work that way, but for him it's easy to self-identify as Ukrainian, because he really hopes that if they beat him, it'll be according to his passport and not other parts of his body. By the way, I remembered that in Russia there was a similar self-identifier who said his mother was Russian and his father was a lawyer. His mother is Russian and his father is a lawyer. Wonderful. By the way, Zhirinovsky's supposed father's name was Wolf Isakovich and Edelstein, OOO, which means Edelstein. Just so you know, in Russian it means noble stone or gemstone. So Zhirinovsky could have called himself not Zhirinovsky, but Kamenev or Samotsvetov. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Why did we come to like Eduardovich so much? Not the Russian, but the Ukrainian version. His honesty. He never said that he loves the Ukrainian people more than the fields, birches, and the trident. He loves those much more than the Ukrainian people. Or maybe the Ukrainian people, or maybe the Ukrainian people. I get confused because people explain things in ways that don't help me remember. I want you to take a look at our hero, your hero. He's not really my hero, of course, but yes, your hero. But still, it's not right for me alone to enjoy it. Here, for example, is Portnikov's monologue about how stupid Trump is. Thank you for at least calling him a person. By the way, yes, Trump can't say a word. He can't connect anything, can't finish what he needs to. He starts talking, immediately jumps to some other thought, and gets all scattered. So if you put a monkey at a typewriter and give it, say, 1,000,000 years to type, I heard there's this conversation, this claim that eventually, just by banging away at the keys, it will eventually produce something. War and Peace. I mean, statistically, it's possible, and specifically War and Peace by Tolstoy, by Lev Tolstoy, not some other War and Peace or by some other Tolstoy. It's the same with Trump, that's what I'm getting at. That's exactly how he did it, just bam, 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 bam. And he ended up creating 3 worldwide best-selling books, just like that, bam, 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 the most popular television show in the world. He won the Republican Party presidential nomination 3 times, created projects, dozens, if not hundreds, of residential, office, and entertainment complexes. Why am I talking? Let's hear from Eduardovich, the expert.
But when Donald Trump appears in a casual conversation with anyone, it immediately becomes obvious. The situation that has developed in recent years, which was already known during his first presidency, but has only intensified with Donald Trump's age, his practical inability to finish a thought and his readiness to contradict himself in every next sentence. Therefore, of course, translators and journalists have to decipher the stream of consciousness that we hear from the current President of the United States, trying to give this stream of consciousness some meaning which may not actually be hidden in it at all. What we understand absolutely clearly, both from Trump's words and actions, he is doing his best to avoid a situation where he would have to impose new sanctions against Russia, because he's determined to lift that country's sanctions. And he just can't understand why the Russian president won't agree to such a favorable offer as a ceasefire, by further lifting sanctions on the Russian Federation and starting economic cooperation between the Trump and Putin teams. The fact that Putin might have other interests besides sanctions, such as further territorial expansion in Ukraine and Europe, is simply not understood by Donald Trump, who lives in a completely different world.
Trump doesn't know how to finish a thought. He just doesn't. And Trump lives in a world of questionable deals. Sorry I couldn't hold back, but stopping the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia is a questionable deal, or ending the 30-year slaughter in Congo and Rwanda, which took, 6 million lives, or is it another questionable deal, like stopping the war between Cambodia and Thailand? There you go. But he can't get his point across. He just can't. He carries the thought, carries it, and then it drops. Or maybe he just can't get his point across to Portnikov. Well, of course, that's Trump's fault, Someone should tell him to explain his thoughts better. Then maybe he would have created something worthwhile, but instead he always comes off like some kind of failed cowboy. Trump always ends up hitting himself in the forehead with a rake. Luckily, excuse me, they got a puppy over there. He's making a fuss, wants to come in here, but I'm not letting him. That's why I'm sharing an interesting story about Portnikov. So he keeps hitting himself on the forehead with a rake. He keeps going, boom, steps on it, bam, then keeps going and steps on the same rake again and hits himself on the forehead again. Luckily, Trump isn't very smart in his head, and also Trump is immoral. As if we didn't know that, but now you'll find out.
And another important feature of all these conversations by Donald Trump is immorality. Immorality elevated to the cult of the new American politics. Trump fails to distinguish between victim and aggressor. He overlooks Ukraine defending itself and Russia attacking.
Not only do we also lack morality, and not only do we have rot in our heads, but we also constantly write utter nonsense. But the interlocutor of Eduardovich, whom you are about to see, Ryashkin, he is not like that. He is smart, kind, generous, and by no means nonsensical.
Well, listen, we are all users of X, the former Twitter. You in America to a greater extent, we here to a lesser extent. But what do we see now when we open X? Countless meaningless tweets from Trump, Musk, representatives of post-fascist, ultra-right and other political movements, all filled with utter nonsense. Yes, it's sometimes diluted, but the main direction is clear and clearly affects immature, impressionable minds like a drug.
Immature minds, that's me and you, or you and me.
The main goal is making the United States a post-fascist state.
Portnikov came to make a quick buck. Well, in other words, to launder money into this so-called post-fascist state, a post-fascist type. By the way, what does that even mean? Well, it's a system where open fascist rhetoric, like, let's say, beat the Jews, has been replaced with something disguised. Very well disguised. Like, we hate Zionists or Israelis, we need to do something about all of them. Or instead of saying we're fascists, they say, let's disguise ourselves, call ourselves anti-fascists, and came up with the name Antifa. But we know ourselves that we're actually fascists, right? Yeah, well, a significant part of the authoritarian practices, elites, and institutions continue to exist in this post-fascist state, and arresting, well, let's say thousands of people who came to the demonstration at the Capitol, or breaking into a United States presidential candidate's house at 5 a.m. with the FBI, or wiretapping senators from the opposition party. Maybe that's allowed, maybe it's not, who knows. Well, in general, it turns out that this is what it is. This is the practice of Yuri Zaravani. Let me say it again. Yuri Zaravani, yes, Yuri Zaravani. As the Britannica Encyclopedia writes, intimidation of the population, legal intimidation of the population, not here, not there, but legally, yes. So, we Republicans like Make America Great Again do this all the time, right? Honestly, gentlemen, what are we doing? The Democratic Party of the United States of America is doing exactly that. But Eduardovich is right. He's right. That's exactly what he wants to say. So, to the foolish Californians for just a little bit of money that the builders will collect, as if they're collecting donations for charity, and Ukrainians usually just steal those charity donations anyway. So, the dollars coming from here, but honestly, they don't just steal dollars. They also take euros, pounds, and even shekels, if you can believe it. It's not just dollars. Whatever they get their hands on, they steal. Americans, whatever comes their way, they steal it. It turns out, by the way, that the half-witted Baden, who can't even remember his wife's name, was on Ukraine's side and fought, probably in his sleep, I think. But he fought against Putin's tyranny. He stood firm, and though he forgot to give weapons due to forgetfulness, he still fought.
The historically important thing about Biden is that he said no to Putin, and when Putin in 2022 clearly and explicitly put forward those security demands, as you probably remember, Biden gave him a firm no and began helping Ukraine, giving the Ukrainian state a chance to survive. This is Biden's significant historical legacy. Biden is among the greatest United States presidents of the 21st century. Joseph Biden will stay, and Donald Trump will only be remembered if he starts World War III and becomes the last United States president. If we get through his term peacefully, he'll eventually be forgotten.
Biden is one of the greatest presidents of America. I don't know whether to laugh or cry, but you can't go that deep, Eduardovich. Well, as we say here, tongue in the back passage, even if it's your beloved Democratic Party, and even if you're getting paid for it. So Brezhnev is either telling a joke or a story. He's lying on the beach, guarded, when a stray dog approaches and, excuse me, licks his balls. And the leader, half asleep, says, "Well, comrades, this is still a bit too much." And it's the same with Portnikov. "Yes, well, Eduardovich, this is still a bit too much." Okay, do you want some more complete nonsense? Or have you had enough already? No, so I still have to give you something else. The speeches of Mudryak, the ethically political Ukrainian.
Well, of course, this is developing according to Putin's scenario. Putin scored another diplomatic victory just yesterday. He's not winning because he's a great politician. Maybe he's talented, but Trump is just handing him these victories. This is the sincere, absolute desire of the United States leader, an ultra-right politician. This should be remembered to play along with another ultra-right politician, Putin. It should be remembered that Putin and Trump are ideologically very close people with imperialistic, ultra-right, I would even say post-fascist thinking, and with a sincere, absolute contempt for democracy.
And as a final touch, like a small piece of crap on the cake, listen, this is a masterpiece. Well, as my buddies used to say, those perpetually drunk artists from the Academy of Painting, I mean Ilya Repin's in St. Petersburg. This is a masterpiece.
Trump himself would like to run the United States of America the way Putin runs Russia, but even that is not ideal. I believe Trump's ideal is Kim Jong-un, who solely leads North Korea.
Well, I think that's enough already. Really, yes, I remember about 30 years ago I came here with concerts. Some guy named Schifri, whom I've never seen in my life. But I know who doesn't know. I left at the end of 73, so these names are all new to me. I don't know anyone there. He was supposed to perform at a venue owned by a good friend of mine, a well-known actor from Odessa named Valery Barda. I bought a ticket, and when I arrived, Valery seated me in the front row, right in the center. So when Yefim Zalmanovich Shifrin came out on stage and looked around like, who should I deliver my monologues to? There's a theater exercise where you project to the last row, then find someone in another row and speak directly to them. So he looked around, found me. Apparently I stood out in the first row, probably because of my height, and decided to deliver his monologues right to me, directly. He chose me, smiled gently, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, I know how you, Zalmanovich, decided to be on a first-name basis with me, how you miss your homeland. I choked up and was ready for anything. I've stood on stage many times in my life and have been in the audience, when, so to speak, I know well the people up there who have also addressed me. I've been in small theaters, in stadiums. I performed my own work there, improvised. I wrote, so to speak, I once said some brilliant words, but when someone addresses me, choosing me out of the whole audience to say, I know you miss your homeland, that I did not expect. A pause, then again Shifrin, again to me. You left part of your soul in Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Well, let me explain. Children's Hospital of Philadelphia is, I think it's the last railway station on Russian territory. Before heading to the west, well, people were going towards Austria. Actually, I've never been to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, but I understood the feeling. Yes, don't be shy, said Yefim Zalmanovich. The motherland won't forget you. I think it was some kind of introduction to something he was going to say later, but at that moment, I got scared. I was really hoping that the motherland, the one I happened to be born into on the way from Vienna to Tel Aviv, had forgotten about me. From the shock, I somehow stood up myself. I don't know why. Shifrin also stopped, meaning he was on stage and I was by the stage on the floor. We ended up the same height. He was short and I was quite tall. The audience froze. I think they thought the concert might continue. I glanced sideways at the interested faces of my fellow villagers. They knew I could pull something like this, but they still didn't expect this. Barda was also very interested in the world behind the doors. With my hands folded, I realized I had to say something, but sitting back down would have been silly. I stood up, wondered why, sat back down, but couldn't remember the reason. But my wife helped, who had spent many years hanging out in, well, I don't know, our favorite artistic circles of Moscow, and had seen those Shifrin brothers in white slippers. She stood up very carefully, straightened her skirt, and said quietly but clearly, "The main thing is, the microphone was nearby, so it caught every word, every sound." "Shifrin," she said. "Go fuck yourself." The thing is, in their way, she's a princess in Georgia, and princesses, duchesses are allowed to do many things that we, ordinary people, well, even Jews can't do, but duchesses can. After that, we left the hall in complete silence. And Shifrin, by the way, he didn't say anything about it either. It was his turn to get shocked, with around 20 or 30 people left after us. So, also quietly, elegantly left. The bartender closed the door. Those who left thanked us warmly and went to the nearest restaurant. "To have a drink or a snack, I won't give the money back for the tickets," said the bartender, and the waiter standing next to him. His name was Victor. By the way, we still save money to this day. We always hug after this story. And he confirmed he wouldn't give it back, but we didn't need it, I said. I got such pleasure from it, and so did we. So we left the restaurant and went to our friend's place to play canasta. It's a card game that came from Argentina, and pepper vodka goes really well with it, especially Nemirov with 2 Fs at the end. By the way, I haven't seen it in stores for a long time. Why am I saying this? Oh, right, what does this have to do with Portnikov? My wife isn't here right now, though I could call her, but I already know what I want to tell you, all you guys. Why should he be the only one who's right? Yeah, Portnikov can go to hell. I think that's clear even in the encyclopedia dictionary. No one will look for clarifications about what I mean by this. God, there are so many of them, both there in Ukraine and in Russia, these pseudo-intellectuals. Dude, we need to check what Mudok means because someone told me it's a castrated goat, but I think that's not true. Yeah, okay, so Trump is a fool. The motherland hasn't forgotten you. Left part of his soul and chop, 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 chop. Went back from here. Dude came to us, to idiots, came to ask for money. That's it. Go on, goodbye. Whoever wants to, go to the House of Culture named after the Ukrainian Revolution of Trekbinda. Okay, that's all. Bye, goodbye.